I was 19 when I met Eli, and he kind of snuck into my life without me realizing how much space he was about to take up. Back then, I lived in this dingy, off-campus house with peeling paint and floors that creaked so loud they might as well have come with a warning label. My roommate, Wes, was cool in that stoner philosopher way, always barefoot, always quoting Nietzsche in his boxers. Eli was his cousin. Stayed with us for a few weeks while figuring out his next move. Those few weeks turned into months. At first, Eli barely said more than 5 words to me. He was quieter than I expected, moved like he was always trying not to take up space. He'd sit in the kitchen after midnight, eating cereal straight from the box, earbuds in, hoodie pulled up even when it wasn't cold, and I, being the emotionally repressed idiot I was, just watched him. From afar, from the kitchen doorway, from the couch when he passed through the living room in those worn-out gray sweatpants and that loose white tank top that hung off one shoulder like it didn't care. I never said anything, but I noticed everything. How he always smelled faintly like citrus and laundry detergent. How he chewed the side of his thumb when he was thinking. How he never turned on lights unless he absolutely had to. One night, maybe 2 months after he'd moved in, I walked into the kitchen for water and found him sitting at the table, staring at his phone with a weird expression, like he'd been punched in the gut and was still trying to pretend he could breathe. "You good?" I asked, already halfway backpedaling for even opening my mouth. He looked up, blinked like he hadn't even heard me come in. "Yeah," he said, then paused. "No, not really. That's all it took. We weren't friends before that, not really. Just 2 people orbiting the same cheap furniture." But that night, something shifted. He put his phone down and I sat across from him. And we talked. About nothing at first. Classes, exes, our shared hatred for Wes's habit of leaving dirty socks on the coffee table. Then, slowly, about heavier stuff. Family. Fear. What it felt like to be 19 and have no idea who the hell you were supposed to be. He didn't say it out loud that night, but I knew what was underneath his words. He was scared, lost, not out, not to himself, not to anyone. And I was out in the technical sense, but still so closed off I might as well not have been. So, of course, we became inseparable. There was nothing romantic at first. We shared headphones on the porch while smoking stolen cigarettes. Took late-night drives to nowhere in my shitty Corolla with the busted AC. He slept on the futon in the living room. I started making too much pasta just so there'd be leftovers. By accident. And every night, when I heard him coughing softly from the other room, I felt weirdly calm, safe. Like I wasn't the only person wandering around in the dark anymore. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining, hard. The kind of rain that makes the windows shudder and the roof leak, in places you didn't know existed. Wes was out. Eli was curled on the couch under a blanket, hoodie still up, legs tucked beneath him like he was trying to disappear. I sat beside him, damp from my run to the corner store, clutching 2 gas station burritos and a plastic bag of Twizzlers. "I come bearing dinner," I said, handing him one. He looked up, smiled. We ate in silence, watched the rain, listened to some playlist he put on, slow, soft songs that made the room feel heavier than it was. Eventually, the power went out. Just like that. Snap. We were sitting in total darkness, except for the glow of his phone screen. "Shit," I muttered. Eli laughed. "Guess we're roughing it." We lit a couple candles Wes kept for vibe emergencies. The room glowed warm, orange, flickering. And maybe it was the storm. Or the hour. Or how close we were sitting. But at one point, I looked at him. And he looked back, and I swear to God, the air changed. "I ever tell you you've got the most annoying, perfect teeth I've ever seen?" he asked. I laughed. "That your version of flirting?" He shrugged. "Maybe." I froze. Not because I was freaked out, but because I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to assume. But he didn't look away. So I asked, "Is that what this is?" He hesitated, just for a second. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think it is." I didn't kiss him. Not that night. But I wanted to. And judging by the way his eyes lingered when I stood up to go to bed, he wanted me to. We didn't touch. Not yet. But the space between us felt electric. And I fell asleep knowing that when the power came back, everything else might still stay lit. The next morning felt different. Not in the dramatic, heart-pounding movie way. Just subtly off. Like I'd woken up in the same world, but something small had rotated inside of it. The power was back. The coffee maker gurgled in the kitchen. Wes was back from wherever he'd been, half asleep on the porch, smoking and talking to his cat like it was a roommate who owed him rent. But Eli wasn't in the living room. His blanket was folded neatly on the futon, and his phone charger was gone. For a second, my stomach dropped. Irrationally. I found him in the backyard, barefoot in the grass, hoodie unzipped for once. The morning sun caught in the strands of his dark hair, and he looked peaceful. "Hey," I said, stepping out onto the concrete. He turned, smiling like he'd been waiting for me. "Hey," he said back, voice scratchy with sleep. "You missed Wes doing yoga in his underwear. Again. Tragic." We stood there in silence, just for a beat. Then he said, "You good?" I nodded. "Yeah. You?" He nodded too, but there was something in his eyes. A flicker of hesitation? Hope? "I meant what I said last night," he added, almost too casually. "I didn't ask which part. I knew." "Me too." He stepped closer, and that was when it started. This slow unraveling of whatever tension had been knotting itself between us for the past 2 months. He didn't touch me, not yet, but he stood just close enough that I could feel the body heat coming off him in the cool morning air. My arm brushed his when I shifted. Neither of us moved away. We didn't kiss then either. I think we both knew it wasn't time, but everything after that felt heavier. The way we looked at each other. The way we moved around the house. Like we were sharing a secret no one else could see. That afternoon, we went to the grocery store. Just the two of us. We argued about pasta shapes. He said penne was the most versatile. I said bow tie pasta was objectively gay and therefore superior. He threw a bag of rigatoni at my head in the aisle. I laughed so hard the cashier stared at us like we were drunk. And maybe we were. On each other. On this strange, sweet thing that was slowly unspooling between us. Back at the house, Wes had vanished again. Eli helped me unpack the groceries. He stood close behind me as I reached for the top shelf, his chest lightly brushing my back, and neither of us acknowledged it. At one point, I dropped a jar of marinara. It didn't break, but it rolled under the fridge. "Great," I muttered, dropping to my knees to reach it. I felt him crouch down beside me. Close. So close. "You really gonna serve this with your pride pasta?" he teased. I turned my head to say something sarcastic, but stopped. Because we were inches apart, and his eyes were on mine. And this time, he didn't wait. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to stop him. To flinch. To do anything but close the distance. And I didn't. Our lips brushed, soft, tentative. Just once. Just enough. Then again, a little firmer this time. A little more sure. It was quiet. Gentle. His hand found my knee for balance, and my fingers curled against the floor, trying not to shake. When we pulled back, he didn't say anything. Just looked at me. I breathed out. "Okay." He smiled. "Okay." The jar of marinara was still under the fridge. We left it there. That night, He didn't sleep on the futon. He didn't sleep in my bed either. Not yet. But we stayed up in the living room until 3 a.m., watching reruns and lying on opposite ends of the couch, our feet barely touching under the blanket. It was stupid. Soft. Nothing and everything at once. At one point, he nudged my foot. "You gonna kiss me again, or was that a one-time pasta-related incident?" I looked over. He was grinning, but there was something uncertain in his eyes. So I shifted, sat up, moved closer, and kissed him again, longer this time, less questioning, still gentle, still slow, but full of everything we hadn't let ourselves say until now. When we broke apart, he leaned his forehead against mine and whispered, "This okay?" "Yeah," I said. More than okay, and I meant it. Even though I had no idea what we were doing. Even though the floor was still cold and the house still smelled vaguely like weed and cheap laundry detergent. He was there, and that was enough, for now. The weirdest thing about falling for someone who's already in your orbit, you don't realize it's happening until you're already deep in it. After that first real kiss, nothing technically changed between us. Eli still woke up late, still ate dry cereal at night, still disappeared into his headphones when he didn't feel like being a person. I still pretended I wasn't watching him 80% of the time. But something had shifted under the surface. We touched more small things. His knee pressed against mine when we sat on the couch, my hand brushing his shoulder when I passed behind him in the kitchen. He started calling me dude a little less, and hey a little more. I don't know if that meant anything, but I noticed. And I noticed everything. One night we were watching some trashy dating show, half mocking the contestants, half invested in the drama. He was slouched low on the couch, head tipped back, hoodie bunched at his elbows. I threw a handful of popcorn at his face. He laughed, lunged for the bowl, and before one knew it, he was on top of me, pinning my wrists playfully against the cushions. His face hovered over mine, eyes dancing with mischief. "You suck," he whispered. "You love it," I whispered back. He didn't move. And then he kissed me. Not the careful kind from before. This one had weight behind it. A hum of want. Of intention. His hand slid into my hair. Mine curled around his hoodie. We didn't rush it, but the electricity was definitely louder now. Less background static, more thunder right above us. When we finally pulled apart, both of us slightly breathless, he didn't move off me right away. Just looked down at me with this unreadable expression. "You okay?" I asked, half teasing, half real. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. It's just..." He trailed off, eyes searching mine. "I've never done this before," he said, quieter now. "Like, not just kissing guys. I mean this." "What, slow-burning sexual tension while watching reality TV?" He cracked a smile. "Yeah, that." I ran a hand up his back. "You don't have to rush anything. I'm not going anywhere." He held my gaze. "Promise?" "Promise." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Then he rolled off me and flopped beside me on the couch, head resting on my shoulder. And we stayed like that for a long time. Nothing else happened that night, no pressure, no big moment. But I didn't sleep much after he went to bed, because something was happening, and we both knew it. A few days later, Wes left for a weekend trip with his girlfriend. That meant we had the house to ourselves for the first time since Eli moved in. It wasn't planned. Nothing ever was with us. I woke up Saturday to the smell of eggs and toast. Walked into the kitchen to find Eli barefoot, in a shirt I knew for a fact was mine. Flipping something in the pan. "Morning," he said like this was something we did every weekend. "Morning," I echoed, heart doing that thing where it skips for no reason. He handed me a plate. We ate in the living room with the window open, bare feet brushing under the coffee table. Later, we cleaned the house together, scrubbed the kitchen, did laundry. Even vacuumed the weird spot in the hallway that always smelled like something had died there in 2011. And it felt so domestic, it made my chest ache. Like this was already our place. Like we'd been doing this forever. That night, We sat on the porch with beers and talked about nothing for hours, the way we always did. Except somewhere between 1 beer and 3, he reached over and slipped his hand into mine. Not shy, not slow, just sure. We sat there in silence for a while, fingers laced, watching the moths throw themselves at the porch light. Then he said, "I've been thinking." "Uh-oh." "Shut up," he smiled, bumping my shoulder. "I'm serious." I turned toward him. He looked a little nervous, but not like he was about to bolt. "Okay. Thinking about what?" He hesitated. "Then, about us, and if this is a thing. If it can be a thing." I didn't move, just let the words land. He kept going, voice softer now. "I don't know what I'm doing. I've never been someone's person before, but I want to try. If you want to try." I could have kissed him right then. Instead, I said, "You've kind of been my person for a while now." His eyes flicked to mine, cautious hope blooming there. I squeezed his hand. "So yeah, let's try." He didn't say anything for a beat, just leaned in and rested his head on my shoulder. And we stayed like that as the night got cooler, the porch light buzzed, and the city kept moving around us. Like it didn't matter. Because for once, it didn't. After that weekend, things settled into something that felt real. Not dramatic, not labeled, just real. Eli didn't officially move into my room, but he stopped bothering with the futon. At first it was innocent, both of us lying on the bed, scrolling on our phones, eventually falling asleep with a foot touching or a hand resting somewhere casual. But slowly, we started sleeping closer. His arm would be around my waist, my face tucked against his neck. Our legs tangled in that way that made it impossible to tell where one person ended and the other began. And God, it felt good. Not in a hypersexual, movie scene kind of way. Just good, warm, quietly electric. Sometimes he'd fall asleep first, and I'd stay up just watching him, memorizing the rise and fall of his chest, the way his hair curled around his ears, the soft little twitch in his hand when he started to dream. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find his hand already in mine. We didn't talk about it during the day. Not much, anyway. We just started living in this in-between space, touching more, laughing more, doing stupid things like fighting over what pizza toppings to order, and pretending not to be hurt when the other one won. And yeah, there were moments when it felt a little fragile, like when Wes asked me, totally casually, "You and Eli, like, together now." I hesitated, and Eli happened to walk in at that exact moment. He didn't say anything, didn't react, just walked past us into the kitchen. Later that night, we lay in bed facing opposite directions, the silence between us louder than usual. "You didn't answer him," Eli said suddenly. My chest tightened. "I didn't know if I should." He nodded. "Yeah." A pause. "Do you want to?" I asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "Not because I don't want it. I just don't know how to be that. Public. Seen." I turned to face him. "You don't have to decide tonight. Or tomorrow. We're not on anyone else's clock." He rolled toward me then, eyes soft in the low light. "You're kind of annoyingly good at this," he murmured. "At what?" "Making me feel okay." I kissed his forehead. "Good. You deserve to feel okay." He nestled into my chest after that, and we didn't talk about it again for a while. The first time things got heavy between us, it wasn't planned. Of course it wasn't. It was one of those long, slow evenings with nowhere to be. Eli had just gotten out of the shower, hair damp, shirt hanging loose around his collarbone. He stood in the doorway of my room like he was thinking about something bigger than either of us. "You good?" I asked, sitting up from where I'd been half asleep on my laptop. He nodded, then walked in and sat beside me on the bed, quiet. "Intentional." "I keep waiting for this to feel fake," he said, barely louder than a whisper. "Like it's just a phase. A thing I'll wake up from." "And does it?" He looked at me then, really looked. "No," he said. "It feels terrifyingly real." I didn't respond right away, just reached for him. My hand sliding along his jaw, guiding him closer. He leaned in before I could say anything else, mouth soft against mine, his hand warm on the side of my neck. The kiss deepened slowly, naturally, nothing rushed, just full of everything we hadn't said yet. His body shifted, closer, more certain. My hands moved under his shirt without thinking, fingertips tracing the warm skin of his back. He let out the softest sound into my mouth, and that nearly undid me. Still, we didn't rush. Even as we lay back together, even as clothes found the floor one piece at a time, it wasn't frantic. It was slow, careful, reverent. Like we both knew what this meant. Like we both wanted to remember it. Afterward, he lay against me, face half buried in my neck, breath still uneven. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. He nodded, then said, "I think I'm falling for you." My heart caught in my throat, because I was already there, so I whispered it back. Honestly, carefully. "I think I already did." He didn't say anything, just pulled me closer, and stayed there, like he finally knew where he belonged. The morning after, I expected everything to feel different, more complicated. Awkward, maybe. But when I woke up to Eli still wrapped around me, face pressed against my shoulder, mouth slightly open in that unflattering way he'd probably kill me for mentioning, I didn't feel weird. I felt grounded, safe. His arm tightened slightly in his sleep, like his body knew before his brain did that I was trying to move. I froze for a second, just watching him. And then his eyes opened, sleepy, soft. He blinked up at me, registering where he was, who he was with. Then he smiled. Just a little. "Morning," he said, voice scratchy. "Hey," I whispered. We lay like that for a few more minutes. No rush. No shame. Eventually, I slipped out of bed to make coffee. He padded in after me, shirtless, dragging the blanket off the bed like a sleepy gremlin. Wes walked in right after, stopping dead in his tracks at the sight of us. Me in my boxers. Eli in just the blanket, both of us standing way too close near the coffee pot. "Oh," Wes said. "So we're official now?" Eli stiffened beside me. I set down my mug. "Yeah," I said, voice calm. "We are." Wes raised an eyebrow. "Cool." Then, like it wasn't a big deal, he opened the fridge and pulled out the milk. Eli didn't say anything until we were back in my room, door closed. He sat on the edge of the bed, eyes focused on his hands. "You didn't have to say that." "I wanted to." He looked up, surprised. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm tired of pretending we're just two guys who happen to share a blanket in each other's mouths." He laughed at that. The tension broke. Then, more seriously, he said, "Okay, then yeah, we're official." He said it like it was still strange in his mouth, like he was trying the word on for size, but it fit. The next few weeks felt like a slow unfolding. Eli didn't become someone else overnight. He still wasn't loud about it, still flinched when people stared too long in public, but he started reaching for my hand under tables, resting his head on my shoulder at the movies, texting me random photos of cats he saw on the street with "thought of you" as the caption. It was soft, uncomplicated, hours. And then, for the first time, he brought me home, just for a day. A quick visit to his parents, place to pick up some boxes and say hi. He didn't tell them about me in advance, not explicitly, just said he was bringing a friend. I didn't push, but as we stood on their porch, his hand brushed mine, tentative, and I gave him a small nod. Inside, his mom was warm and talkative, his dad quieter but polite. They made us lunch, asked us about school, and never once made it weird. Not until Eli grabbed a soda from the fridge, turned back to the table, and casually rested a hand on my shoulder as he passed. His dad saw it. And he didn't flinch, didn't shift, didn't ask questions, just smiled, raised his glass, and said, "You've got good taste." I looked at Eli. He looked like he was about to cry and laugh all at once. We didn't talk about it until we were back in the car. He drove in silence for a while, then finally said, "I think that was the first time I didn't feel like I was hiding." I reached over and took his hand. He didn't let go. Later that night, back in our little off-campus house, I found him sitting on the porch alone. Hoodie pulled tight, knees up to his chest. "Cold?" I asked, stepping out. He shook his head. just thinking. I sat beside him, waited. Then he said, I spent so much time being scared of this, of wanting it, of wanting you. I stayed quiet. And now that it's here, he said, I keep thinking I'll wake up and it'll be gone. I leaned over and kissed his temple. It's not going anywhere. He turned to me, and this time, when he looked at me, I didn't see hesitation. I saw him. Clear, soft, real. And he said, I love you. Simple as that. No build-up. No warning. I froze for a second, then said, yeah? He nodded, already bracing like he'd gone too far. But I didn't let him spiral. I smiled. I love you too. And just like that, he leaned in and kissed me like he believed it now. That was the moment it stopped being casual. Not that we were ever just a fling, but saying I love you changed something fundamental between us. In the best way. Eli didn't suddenly become a PDA machine or some new confident version of himself. He still ducked out of crowded rooms early, still wore hoodies when it was 80 degrees out, still talked too fast when he got nervous. But he was mine now. And more importantly, I was his. It was in the little things. Like the way he started cooking breakfast without asking if I wanted any, just assuming I'd be there. Or how he started sleeping deeper when I was next to him, like his body finally knew how to rest. Wes caught us slow dancing in the kitchen once. No music, just us, swaying barefoot on the tile floor in the middle of the night. He didn't say anything, just grabbed his cereal and walked right back out. I think he likes us, Eli said, cheek pressed to my chest. I think he's terrified of us, I replied, which is basically the same thing. We laughed, kept dancing. By the time finals rolled around, we were in a rhythm. He'd sit cross-legged on the bed with his laptop, chewing pens and muttering stats formulas, while I tried to finish a design project without rage quitting. We fought sometimes, about dumb things, how he left his laundry in the washer too long, how I forgot to buy oat milk again. But the fights never lasted. He was stubborn. So was I. But he was also the first to reach for my hand when things went quiet. And I was the first to pull him into a hug when he looked like he was starting to disappear into his own head again. We weren't perfect, but we worked. One night, deep into spring, I came home late from the library and found the lights off. Thought maybe he was already asleep. But when I stepped into our room, there he was, sitting cross-legged on the bed, lit only by the warm orange glow of the desk lamp, wearing my hoodie again, looking up at me like I'd just returned from war. I missed you, he said quiet. I was gone for 4 hours. Still, I dropped my bag, crossed the room. He reached out, pulled me into his lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Let's stay like this, he said against my collarbone. For how long? Forever? Forever? I smiled into his hair. Deal. The last morning before we both moved out, we stood in the empty living room, staring at the futon where he used to sleep, the place where everything had started. Feels like another life, he said. I nodded. He slipped his hand into mine. You scared? I asked. He shrugged. A little. But not of us. What then? Just starting over somewhere else. Being us out there. I squeezed his hand. We don't have to figure everything out right away. I know, he said, but I want to. And I believed him. Because the version of Eli I'd met months ago wouldn't have said that out loud. But this one wanted things. And more importantly, he wanted them with me. That summer, we moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. It was small. The water pressure sucked. The windows stuck. But it was ours. We painted the walls ourselves, argued about throw pillows, made a playlist of all the songs we used to fall asleep to on the couch, adopted a cat that hated both of us equally. Every now and then, I'd catch him staring at me, over breakfast, or while brushing his teeth, or just sitting beside me at the laundromat. I'd raise an eyebrow. He'd smile. I still can't believe this is real, he'd say, and every time, I'd kiss him like a promise. Believe it. I used to think love had to look a certain way. Grand gestures. Perfect words. Fireworks in the sky. But with Eli, it looked like breakfast dishes in the sink. Like shared playlists and quiet touches and late-night forehead kisses. It looked like two guys who didn't plan on falling in love, but did anyway. Slow at first, then all at once. And for once, I didn't need to know where it was going. Because I already knew who I wanted to go with. Him. Always him.